October, but in the meantime, I ask for everyone's patience today as we navigate this. With that, I'd like to call this public session to order.
Your Worship, all public meetings of Moncton City Council are simultaneously translated. Hearing devices are available in the lobby. You have the right to address City Council in the official language of your choice. Meetings are also simulcast in both official languages on City of Moncton's YouTube channel and can be found on our website at moncton.ca. If you have registered with the City Clerk's office prior to the agenda deadline 7 days before the meeting, you will be given 5 minutes for your presentations. Other public presentations will be given 2 minutes. You will receive a reminder when 1 minute is remaining. Please note, no presenter shall speak disrespectfully of council, staff, or a member of the general public. The use of offensive or profane language will not be tolerated. Any breach of this guideline may result in the presenter being asked to leave the council, the meeting at the discretion of the chair.
All public meetings of Moncton City Council do have simultaneous interpretation services, and receivers are located at the entrance to chambers. You have the right to address council in the official language of your choice. Meetings are also streamed in both languages on the city's YouTube channel. If you have registered with the City Clerk's office prior to the agenda deadline 7 days before the meeting, you will be given 5 minutes for a presentation. Otherwise, you will be given 2 minutes. You will receive a reminder when 1 minute is remaining. Please note that no presenters shall speak disrespectfully of council, staff, or a member of the general public. The use of offensive or profane language will not be tolerated. And any breach of this guideline will result in the presenter being asked to leave the council chambers at the discretion of the chair. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
One rearrangement you would propose?
Yes, it's been asked if council would allow the stop up and close, which is item 10.2, to be moved up after planning matters.
With that, one minor modification. Could I get a motion to accept the agenda? Thank you, Councillor Legier, seconded by Councillor Kingston, I believe. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, I believe. If anyone is not in agreement, you just let me know, okay? Because it's kind of challenging to see everybody at the same time.
The next would be conflict of interest, déclaration de conflit d'intérêt.
Thank you. Is there anyone who has a conflict of interest to declare? Don't see anyone. Thank you.
There are no adoption of minutes this evening. Consent agenda. There are 2 things on the consent agenda. One is event street closure, noise bylaw exemptions, request for events that will be happening within the city September to December 2014, and the provincial election municipal advocacy priorities.
Terrific. Is there someone who wishes to move the consent agenda? Thank you, Councillor Butler. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Legier. Any questions on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
We have no public presentations this evening. There is an administrative presentation. It's an update from RCMP Superintendent Ben Jolet. I am not sure if Superintendent is on as of yet.
Superintendent Gillette, are you online? Right. Well, perhaps we could carry on, and then when Superintendent gets on, we can, if everyone's in agreement with that. All right. Well, then we can move right into planning matters.
The first is an introduction of rezoning application for Gateway Towers. I believe that Mr. Bilba.
Kelly.
Yes.
Kelly, Ben Gillette just sent a note saying that
He's an unauthorized attendee apparently, so he's not able to get in. So perhaps IT can help him out.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, Mr. Budd, you may commence your introduction to the rezoning for Gateway Towers.
Okay, good evening, Your Worship and Council. Tonight, we have a new rezoning application for a project known as Gateway Towers. It's going to involve a number of municipal plan, downtown core community improvement plan, and zoning bylaw amendments. And I'll take us through this through the presentation. If we go to the next slide. So the rezoning application proposes to, number one, amend the municipal plan Schedule 1 by redesignating a portion of PID 704606662 and PID 00697847 from downtown to planning area. The second amendment proposes to amend the downtown core community improvement plan secondary area in the municipal plan schedule to include portions of the same reference PIDs that I just mentioned. The third amendment involves amending various figures in the downtown core community improvement plan to accommodate the proposed development. And the last amendment involves amending Schedule A of the zoning bylaw to rezone portions of the PIDs that I referenced from RP Riverfront Park to CBD Central Business District. If we can go to the next slide, and these proposed amendments are being requested in order to accommodate a mixed-use development with approximately 380 residential units. The development includes a two-story podium with commercial uses and residential townhouses, two 17-story residential towers with underground parking and structured parking on the first and second levels at Foundry, 1 Foundry Street, and a number of related PIDs, which I'll go through. And the applicant is J.N. Laffert Realty, Inc. And if we go to the next slide, this is a location map. It shows that it's in the downtown. We go to the next slide. This slide, the developer received city council approval through the City of Moncton disposition and acquisition of municipal land policy to acquire for assembly identified portions of PIDs 704606662, PID 00697847, PID 7021599, and a portion of Foundry Street south of Assumption Boulevard to be combined with the developer's property at PID 7061581. And it's also subject to a stop up and close of the portion of Foundry Street south of Assumption, which will, if this application goes forward, will be dealt with tonight. And so the assembly of this land will create the proposed building and development site to accommodate the development I just described. And what you see on this map, the red etched area, is the property that is being acquired from the city that the city has agreed to sell. And the yellow black dashed line shows the overall development site. So if we go to the next slide, please. And this is a view of the development site, which shows the former Northumberland Dairy Building. It shows the Foundry Street right-of-way on the south side of Assumption, and what we call a ditch area, which is next to the park, which makes up the development site. Now, when we look at this with regards to the current condition of the lands, the entrance to the Riverfront Park through Foundry Street is very poorly defined. Furthermore, the portion of the lands to the immediate west of Foundry and bordering onto the trail and Halbett sports fields are undeveloped and have in previous presentations to council have been problematic from time to time as the ditch areas had some occurrences of social and safety challenges. So this provides a perspective of the area proposed to be developed and improved under the Downtown Core Community Improvement Plan. So if we go to the next slide, to try to show the overall context of this development, it's highlighted, the area of the development's highlighted in yellow. And what you see is the overall riverfront park shown in green. And then there's a trail shown by the red, and then you can see the relationship as well to the Petitcodiac River. So this site represents a very small part of the overall riverfront park, and the park still is able to function. That it doesn't impact the sports fields or the riverfront park trail. So if we go to the next slide, what this shows you is the site plan of the proposed development. It shows a 2-story podium with a publicly accessible corridor through the site from Assumption to Riverfront Park. It shows 2 17-story towers connected by a 3rd floor pedway. And then there's two stories of townhouses on the western tower with commercial along the 1st floor of both towers. And there's also underground parking in this building and a parking area in front of the building, Tower 2. We go to the next slide. This provides a building rendering, and it really shows the defined pedestrian gateway entrance into the Riverfront Park with commercial fronting onto the park. And the commercial spaces are designed to try to assist with animating the overall park. If we look to the western side of the first tower, you'll see a pedestrian walkway, and there's a tree buffer planted between the ballpark and the perimeter townhouses. And there's also very clearly defined connections to Assumption. So the pedestrian circulation is enhanced in this overall plan, either through the gateway of Foundry, which I'll show you more details on later. The other thing that's important in the Downtown Community Improvement Plan, there are certain gateway features where we're trying to maintain view planes through to the river, and the design of the 2 towers and the pedestrian gateway helps achieve that. And again, I'll show you that later in the presentation. If we go to the next slide, you'll see a closer view of what it looks like from the building along the Riverfront Park. And if we go to the next slide, this is a view of 2-story townhouses at the perimeter of the building podium facing the Halbett's sports fields. And you can see the new walkway through there. And it's essentially in the place of where the existing trail is located. We go to the next slide. This was an early rendition of the front of the building, of the towers, and there were some problems with the overall design, and I'll show you the new design in a few slides. We go to the next slide. This is the overall development concept from the existing downtown core community improvement plan, which is a master plan for downtown revitalization. The privately held lands highlighted by the circle, currently those are privately held lands, and it's contemplated that this is going to be a higher density project envisioned in the southeast corner of Assumption Boulevard and Foundry. And so you'll sort of see a cluster of 4 buildings. 2 of them are currently on the Lafford property, and 2 would be on a property contemplated that's currently owned by MB Power. But what I'm trying to illustrate is in this general vicinity, the downtown plan envisions this cluster of development. And what's being proposed tonight in the amendment is just shifting the boundary of that red circle to the west and to include the proposed development. So if we go to the next slide, what this shows is in the downtown core community improvement plan, the master plan for downtown revitalization, there's a number of what we call neighborhood district areas. The Upper West Side, the corporate district, etc. But the Gateway Towers development is contained in what we call the Riverfront District. And again, just trying to illustrate here that this was always, some form of this type of development was always contemplated at this location. It's just slightly becoming a little larger, and I'll come back to that. If we go to the next slide, what's interesting also is part of the lands contained in the downtown core community improvement plan, including the law courts building, are located in an area that's subject to flooding, as shown by what this map is called the Resilient Space Plan. And again, this is in the downtown core community improvement plan, and this plan acknowledges the close proximity of the Petitcodiac River and climate change impacts associated with sea level rise, intensifying storm surges, intensifying precipitation events, and related inland stormwater flooding. And the plan has a section to mitigate risk associated with overland flooding events. The city zoning bylaw establishes a framework, a benchmark for new construction of habitable space at a minimum of 10.5 meter elevation, which is above the flood area that would flood if in a 1 to 100 year flood event. And so that combined with other flood mitigation strategies contained in the plan that deal with flood-proofing underground parking and such, help address this issue. The other thing council may be aware of is the downtown infrastructure is being renewed and streets are being elevated, and that also is all assisting with the climate change adaptation and mitigation. And in the future, there's also a proposal for the city to undertake a study with FCM funding to look at other measures to assist with flood protection, such as a protective berm being incorporated throughout the Riverfront Park. So I raise these because I understand there might be concerns related to this. We go to the next slide. This is the slide that I said was going to get redesigned. This is the front of the building. And one of the important things, normally our downtown design standards require buildings to completely be located along the frontage, and things like downtown parking can't be in front of buildings in the main street. But in this instance, the parking here is being created to help provide some parking for the tenants of the commercial spaces and residents and overall tenants in this building. So to mitigate that design requirement, we wanted facade improvements on the first tower, which you can see here. But we also wanted to create a dedicated pedestrian gateway feature that creates a welcoming environment through to the Riverfront Park, and that's publicly accessible. And this will be a condition that I'll come back to, but this will be a publicly accessible right-of-way that anyone can use to walk through to the riverfront. And it might be hard to see, but that gateway goes all the way through and underneath the pedway. So if we go to the next slide, this is a little bit closer look. We may need to have in future presentations a little closer look at the space under the pedway, but the intent here is to create some amenities for the public that are walking if they want to use park benches, a nicely landscaped area. So there's conditions in the rezoning to create this. If we go to the next slide, these are the amendments to enable this development. So the first one, Schedule 1.7, is the generalized future land use map. And we're changing the land use designation from downtown to planning area to add that etched area in the first map to the downtown core community improvement plan area. The next amendment is Amendment Schedule 4.1, and that is essentially amending the boundary of the downtown core community improvement plan to be able to accommodate the two-tower design. And the last amendment shown here is in the zoning bylaw, Schedule A37, and we're rezoning lands that are zoned today, Riverfront Park, to Central Business District to accommodate the proposed development. And if we go to the next slide, we're also amending the actual downtown core community improvement plan. And in that plan, there's a number of figures that are being amended to widen the boundary to accommodate the redevelopment proposal. So these are fairly straightforward, but if you go to the next slide, you'll start to see on the bottom slide, and I'm having difficult, bear with me, I'm having difficulty reading that slide, but it's starting to incorporate the development concept of gateway towers. And we also know that the Three Sisters development has been built or is going forward. So that's being also updated in this development concept. And there's a series of them. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see the overall development concept on the top, and that development's being integrated into this. And then the neighborhood district model, it's being incorporated. So you can see that the boundary of this plan is slightly shifted to the west to incorporate this. And that aligns with the land that is being acquired by the developer from the city. We go to the next figures. It just continues all to go through all the figures. And if we go to the next figure, next slide, and the same thing, and I'll just, what's interesting on some of these, you can see how the existing objectives are being respected, such as circulation and destination routes. Go to the next slide. Like for here, the top slides show the circulation objectives and the importance of being able to get down to the riverfront. And with the gateway design of the pedestrian access, you can see through Foundry that objective is able to be maintained. And on the bottom slide, the current development downtown core community improvement plan identifies current important gateway locations where they in the downtown, represented by that sort of pink large circle, and it has important view planes and sort of gateway features. And again, I think the development, the way it's been designed, respects this objective, these objectives. And if you go to the next slide, these are just other updated, the flood map is updated, the parking maps are updated, and if you go to the next slide, there's a couple of more figures here, transit routes and so forth. And if you go to the next slide, this is the implementation. So there's a number of figures in the downtown plan that we wanted to make sure are, if this proposal goes forward, that this development is incorporated into those figures, and the policies of those behind those figures remain the same and will apply to this development. If you go to the next slide, the recommendation, administration's recommending council proceed with these amendments by giving first reading to the bylaw amendments, setting a public presentation date for September 3rd, referring these bylaw amendments to the Planning Advisory Committee for their written views, and setting a tentative date for a public hearing for 4 p.m. October 7th, 2024. And if we go to the next slide, if this is approved, should be subject to a resolution with the following conditions. And I'll read some of the important ones. That the first one, that a portion of Foundry Street south of Assumption Boulevard be stopped up and closed. And if this proceeds, this will be on the council's agenda to deal with tonight to initiate that. The second condition is that a portion of PID 70261-599, a portion of 704606662, portion of PID 00697847, and a portion of the former Foundry Street be consolidated with the developer's PID 70261-581 to create a building lot as per the plans before a development permit is obtained. 3, or the next slide, condition 3, that the developer shall employ additional flood mitigation measures to reduce the risk and impact of flooding in the lower level of the parking structure. These flood mitigation measures are to be prepared by a certified professional engineer licensed to practice in province of New Brunswick, and may include, at the request of the city engineer or their designate, and subject to their acceptance, studies or designs prepared and stamped by a professional engineer. Condition 4 is related to that prior to the issuance of a building and development permit, the landowner shall enter into an agreement that relates to this condition. And we've done a number of these already in other developments, and they relate to things that waiving, absolving the city of any future risks associated with flooding, providing notice in the underground parking that it could be subject to flooding, and notice in agreements with tenants on all these conditions. The next slide is condition 5. Developer enters into agreement with the city to relocate municipal infrastructure, including the combined sewer in south of Assumption Boulevard. And that relates to the sewer in the Foundry Street location that's got to be relocated to accommodate this. And then the rest are kind of standard conditions that we issue in most rezonings. And we can go to the next slide. And the next slide. And the next slide. So, and the next slide. And so with that, I would turn it back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Bill. Councillor, or Deputy Mayor Terrio, did you wish to move this recommendation?
No, I do have questions.
Okay. I see hands up. Councillor Legier, do you wish to move this recommendation? Yes. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc. I will go back to the Deputy Mayor for your questions, and I think I saw another hand up somewhere.
Could you please remove the attendee screen and just let us see council?
All right, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Merci, Madame la Maire. I'm just.
Thank you, Your Worship.
The citizens contacted us with regards to this, and Bill, you mentioned that you would issue the owner would issue notices to citizens for the parking if there's flooding. That's not very reassuring. And also, how do we address the citizens who are concerned? I mean, if we vote in favor of this tonight, this means that let's say something would happen to the developers who want to go ahead with this project and they can't do it. So then it goes to who?
So maybe I'll just talk about the downtown in general. There is a floodplain in the downtown. The courthouse, for example, if you look at the building elevation, it was designed to be above the flood level, and they have underground parking that was designed to be flood-proof. And in the event there is a Saxby Gale type flood, underground parking may get flooded, but it can get cleaned out and washed out. And there's backwater valves and everything to try to mitigate these buildings. Now, the current Three Sisters building is in part of that floodplain, and they were required to build at the 10.5 elevation, and they've designed their underground parking to be flood-proofed and have entered into that agreement I referenced, and they provide notification to tenants. And so other downtown developments in this area have also done that. So it's the Downtown Core Community Improvement Plan. When we first initiated it, we got FCM funding to do the plan to try to come up with solutions to deal with climate change adaptation and mitigation. And in this instance, the whole plan focuses on achieving that through various means, adapting the infrastructure work you're seeing, Westmoreland and Assumption being elevated. All of that is part of addressing this issue. And individual developers have to design their buildings to meet these new requirements.
Thank you, Bill. When we were discussing the reopening of the river, there was a lot of discussion around the types of development that would go along the river. So I'm just trying to understand the preoccupation of the citizens if we look at the petition that we received and the fact that it seemed that this was something new for them. So did we communicate to the public properly that we were going to develop south of Assumption Boulevard when we did the plan?
Yes. So in the current plan, the overall objective of the Riverfront Park designation is to be a passive recreational park. And that That is the overall objective. So, but there are private lands along Assumption that also have development rights, and we're zoned central business district and have the right to develop. So here we have a development that is proposing minor sort of land assembly to achieve what I think will help revitalize and implement the overall objectives of the master plan for downtown revitalization. Right now, it's not in a very improved state to function as a gateway. And so the developer will help create a gateway and create amenities for people that use the park, which probably will make it a safer environment as well.
So Bill, could this create a precedent for other developers to go along the river and, to come back to us and ask us
No.
to
It's very clear. Like if I was able to go back into the plan, there's clear policies that indicate, the main objective is of the Riverfront Park designation to protect that. And it's very passive. It's not intended to be developed. But in this case, there's a unique situation where it is held by a private developer has the right to redevelop that site. And because of the huge cost of developing there, he's trying to make the most efficient development possible and requires some additional land to make it feasible. And that's what was before council when you made that decision to agree to sell the land.
So one last question, Madam Mayor. So Bill, then the land that is there presently, an owner or the owner of that land could have built something, is that correct?
Yes, they could do a very high density project there. And those maps from the downtown core community improvement plan, I was trying to illustrate that development is contemplated by the city's plan, and they have the right to do that type of development there.
And how do we address the concerns of the citizens?
So that's the balance. I think one of the things that people want access to the Riverfront Park, and I think some of the concerns were that this is a private development and only the people living at this development will be able to enjoy that riverfront access. And that's not the case. There's a condition, and we could go back into the list of conditions, but they're creating a dedicated pedestrian accessible right-of-way for all citizens to use to go in. They're also improving on the west side of the building the connectivity of trails to Assumption. And the park users, the people that use the ballparks or anyone, will then be able to stop along the riverfront park. There's going to be outdoor patio area and restaurants and other retail that they will be able to enjoy. And that's one of the criticisms of our current riverfront, that there is a lack of amenities for people to use. So it's a bit of an improvement in that regard.
So 50 years from now, the building will still be standing and it won't be flooded?
So it's designed for the 1 in 100 year flood event. So, which is, people will know the Saxby Gale. That is where the habitable space of the building is. And there's other initiatives, like over time, part of the plan contemplates adapting our infrastructure. There is a proposed study to look at what other measures can we do and flood protection measures. And so there's things that we can do over the next 25, 35, 50 years to ensure this built environment is protected.
Merci, Bill. Merci.
Thank you. Councillor Bourgeois. Councillor Bourgeois, are you there? We can't. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
There you go.
No worries. Thank you very much, Bill, for the presentation. Thank you for the Leffords for their confidence in downtown development. Three quick questions. On page, I don't know what they're not numbered, are they? It said that on the traffic impact study, staff raised some questions, concerns. What were staff's concerns?
Is Renee Legacy online with us? There is.
Yes, I am.
Can you address, I know that we're asking for, the traffic study is not completely done. There were some things we want it done. But maybe Renee, can you speak to where we're at with that?
Sure. Thank you, Conseiller Bourgeois. The traffic impact study showed that we would require 2 westbound lanes on Assumption Boulevard. We currently have 1. However, a second westbound lane could easily be retrofitted just by changing some of the concrete island in the intersection. However, we have to ask ourselves if we're trying to create a gateway here to the riverfront. So do we really want to add another traffic lane that people would have to cross? And also by adding this westbound traffic lane would also restrict some on-street parking that we could potentially be doing in the future. So the traffic impact study really looked at kind of traffic impact, black and white, but I think we have some consideration and some thinking of how that intersection will look like, considering that we want to bring more people to the riverfront.
Okay, and will that traffic impact study be completed with staff's comments when it comes back to council?
Yes, it will.
Okay, perfect. Second question, Bill. Maybe I misread the requirement for land for public purposes. You basically state that there's no need for land for public purposes. I quote, the development is, just lost it. The development as proposed does not require a contribution of lands for public purposes. Could you explain that? Why not?
I'd have to grab my report. Can I come back to that? I need my.
Sure. Okay. It says, however, the publicly owned private space achieves a similar objective without public funds expenditure. But my question was going to be, if that's the case, I keep losing my page here. Technology is beautiful when it works. My question was, if not land for public purpose, which to me makes perfect sense because it's surrounded by land for public purposes, but shouldn't there be some sort of financial compensation instead? So you can ponder that and look it up.
And I may need to go into more detail for the next meeting, but what I do know is there's a couple of things. The developer's going to invest $1 million in landscaping improvements for this overall development, creating, the trail improvements, the tree buffer, the pedestrian gateway, and then so that's a bit of kind of compensation to offset that. But I'll make a point to have more details on that.
Yes, because I think we have legal obligations. It's either a certain percentage of the value of the land or a certain percentage of the land itself. So I'm not sure that beautifying existing public land qualifies legally. That might need a legal clarification as well.
So and here's some of my thinking. When we have a raw piece of land that we subdivide, we're required to take 10%.
Exactly.
For cash in lieu. We're not subdividing land, we're assembling land. And it's actually the city that's donating parcels. So I'm not sure there really is an LFPP requirement because it's not being done in the traditional way, but I'll look into this further.
Right, because technically, we are losing land for public.
Yeah, the city is giving up land. For,
Okay, so what does the legal obligation, that's fine, as long as you come up at the next meeting with the answer to that legal obligation, since we're doing something that is different from the norm. I'd appreciate it. And my last question is, should we require amongst the conditions, you have 18 on the sheet there, but should we also obligate the owners to have something like a clear written communications with the tenants, commercial and residential, regarding flood risks and mitigation, to be sure that, not that I don't trust the developer or contraire, but this developer and any other future developer that comes along, that I've asked for this before, can this be part of the contract, that there's a clause there that says, we've mitigated the flooding risk, etc., but
yes,
there are still risks.
The developer currently is doing that today with the Three Sisters. In that condition 3 and 4, condition 4 is an agreement that the developer enters into, and those things that you're referencing are built into that agreement as an undertaking the developer has to do.
Okay.
So it's already being done.
So it would be a civil matter. It's already been promised. The city does not have to obligate the developer.
It's built into the agreement between the city and the developer has certain obligations to do with his tenants, and it's those conditions are spelt out. We could circulate a copy of that agreement to council. One that's
perfect. Okay. As long as citizens, I know that as a corporation, we are protecting the corporation and therefore the citizens who are stakeholders of the corporation called the City of Moncton. But 20 years from now, 30 years from now, maybe the Laffords are going to sell it to somebody else, and somehow in the deal or the transaction, I know, but does the obligation to inform future tenants come with the agreement?
Yeah, and it runs with the title. So it runs with the land title. So
okay, thank you very much, Bill. Thank you, Madame le Maire.
Merci beaucoup. Anyone else? I see no other hands this time. Speak now. All right. We know that the public presentation will be on September 3rd. The Planning Advisory Committee written views September 25th. There will be a public hearing on October 7th. So with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I would suggest that now, I understand that Superintendent Gillette is online. Perhaps we could hear from the RCMP now. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yes? Okay. The floor is yours, Superintendent.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we cannot see you.
I don't know why, but thank you to the IT department for figuring that out. It was saying that I was a non-approved guest for the meeting. So, oh, there we go. So I'll jump right into my report. Thank you for your patience with me and trying to figure out how to log on here. I'll speak first of all regarding community policing. As you can all imagine, extremely busy this summer. A lot of community events, a lot of planning events. Here are some of the highlights since we last reported to council. We continue to have a lot of good reactions regarding our Coffee with a Cop events. We had another event on July 19th. It's a really good opportunity for residents to meet with police officers, but also for applicants to come out and speak to the community policing team and ask questions specifically regarding our pre-posting agreement, which I've mentioned in the past, where applicants have an opportunity of coming back to New Brunswick and knowing that they'll come back even before heading out to our academy. On August 9th, just about a week ago, for those that aren't aware, Annually, August 9th marks the annual national celebration to honor all Canadian Armed Forces and police officers who served in peacekeeping missions around the world. On August 4th, the Sunday before, there was a ceremony to commemorate the event. Myself and Inspector White attended the event, which was attended by various municipal, provincial, and federal elected officials. Councillor LeBlanc was there. And it was a really good event. It was held at the Legion's Branch 6 in Moncton. And again, it's always an honor for the RCMP to pay tribute not only to members of the Canadian Armed Forces who've served in peacekeeping missions, but members of the RCMP and other police officers as well. On August 12th, the Community Policing Unit launched its positive ticketing program. It's an initiative that we've been working on with the City of Moncton, City of Dieppe, and the Town of Riverview. It's aimed at targeting youth, specifically, who demonstrate positive behaviors, such as being kind, wearing proper safety equipment on bicycles, or being helpful in a general manner. So youth who are caught by members of the Community Policing Unit displaying positive behaviors will be issued a positive ticket, rewarding them with a free entry to one of the 5 pools in the Kodiak region. So we're at summer's tail end. However, we plan on continuing this throughout the year. So these tickets will be able to be used at 5 pools in the Kodiak region in the 3 municipalities, both indoor and outdoor. So we look forward to seeing the response from youth and the connection that the Community Policing Unit will be able to do. Next, regarding community policing, since July 29th, we've made a coordinated effort regarding the intersection of High and Park. I'm sure everyone on council is aware about that location. So the area, for those that haven't been there in a bit, it's full of open areas and unoccupied lots. Therefore, it's led to an increased presence of individuals living rough in the community and associated negative behaviors that can come with that. So in partnership with the Moncton bylaw, the community policing team has increased patrols in the area, in fact, on an hourly basis to keep tabs on the area. We've also tasked our patrol section to increase patrols during nighttime. And since we started on July 29th specifically, we've seen a decrease in groupings and loitering in the area. Obviously, we won't completely eliminate this. However, our goal is to target that specific location based on issues brought forward from community members. The other thing I'd like to add regarding that is our open air drug enforcement activities that we've been doing for some time, specifically with our plainclothes members. What I've asked the community policing team is to do it in full uniform, so it's less of a spring up on people that are using drugs in the public, but have our community policing members who are in uniform, fully marked vehicles, conduct those patrols specifically in our downtown. They've had a lot of success. A lot of people have been detained, drugs have been seized, and again, pointing people towards services. It's a continued effort both on the patrol side, community policing, but also on our crime reduction unit, who are going to deploy when they can, specifically in plainclothes on those troubled areas. Another note is really good work in partnership with the Enviro team, which has been patrolling the area on a daily basis to clean any garbage, debris left behind. So our community policing unit is very plugged in to all of our partners, specifically in the downtown, to work on that and do as much as we can. So I'd like to remind council and residents that back to school is only 15 days away. It seems that summer has flown by. So with the abundance of school buses and extra traffic on the roadways, I want everybody to please drive safe, respect traffic controls to ensure our kids get to school safely. And our community policing team will be making patrols to our schools to renew the partnerships with the staff there. And discuss safety protocols such as our safe plans and other various things that we do within the schools. There's some successes that I'd like to speak about regarding our crime reduction unit since last reported to council. Specifically on June 29th, our team received a complaint regarding a break and enter. The victim reported that someone had used their garage door opener to access the garage and stolen 2 high-end bicycles, amongst other things. So less than a month later, on July 22nd, the victim called us and reported that she'd located one of the bikes on social media, on a marketplace. And so our crime reduction unit deployed using an innovative investigational technique. And thanks to the investigation and the coordinated effort of our crime reduction unit team, patrol, general investigation, we were able to arrest 2 suspects, a male and a female, and then executed a search warrant where the second bicycle was recovered and other stolen property was found. On July 17th, our patrol members received a call of a potential impaired driver, and upon obtaining the license plate of the vehicle, it came back as stolen. As I've mentioned before at council, stolen vehicles is one of the priorities for our crime reduction team, so they immediately attended the scene, leading to the arrest of a male and a female. And following the recovery of the stolen vehicle, during the search, a large quantity of drugs was seized, including crack cocaine and crystal methamphetamine and cash. 2 days later, on July 19th, the same team was out, observed a male who was wanted on several warrants. Again, this is part of our targeted drug enforcement in the downtown and in other areas. This was on Mountain Road. They proceeded to the arrest of the individual, which led to a significant seizure of contraband cigarettes, drugs, and the male had several outstanding warrants, as mentioned. On July 31st, the team was in the Elmwood area on this time, and they observed a suspicious vehicle, and it came back as stolen. 3 males were arrested and were charged, and during the search incidental to arrest, again, contraband cigarettes were seized. We've had a high number of stolen vehicles reported. However, a high number of charges pursuant to possession of a stolen vehicle have been laid over the last month to 6 weeks. As I mentioned earlier, it's one of the priorities for a crime reduction unit, and they're constantly out on the road looking for this through the use of the information from our analysts. We know exactly which cars are missing, what to look for, and our team is getting very good at getting positive results. Next, our general investigation section. Just before noon on July 19th, we received a complaint regarding child pornography allegations. The witness had the courage to come forward and report this to us, and they indicating that they had located suspicious material on an electronic device of a loved one. Our general investigation team immediately took action in the investigation and drafted a search warrant. The team, accompanied by Kodiak Patrol, executed a search warrant at a residence on the same day, and a 57-year-old man was taken into custody. Various devices were seized, charges have been laid, and investigation continues. So I'm really proud of my team specifically regarding that incident, because it was a matter of hours that they got the phone call, they deployed, and a suspect was in custody, and a search warrant had been executed. Next in our patrol, it's been a pretty busy summer, as expected, with the nice weather and the increase of population in the Greater Moncton area. Just some of the highlights of our patrol members, some of the proactive work that they've been doing, going from call to call. One specifically on July 16th, one of our members was conducting traffic enforcement and noticed a vehicle with tinted windows. During the traffic stop, the member observed that one of the occupants had contraband cigarettes. The subsequent arrest and search revealed a considerable amount of drugs, including crystal methamphetamine, crack cocaine, illegal drug tablets, and a male and a female were arrested following that traffic stop. On July 25th, 2:30 in the morning, our Kodiak Patrol members responded to a holdup alarm at a convenience store. And while the members were en route, our amazing operational communications center dispatchers confirmed that the robbery was in fact in progress, and the suspect was armed with a knife and had just fled with an amount of cash. Thanks to an immediate patrol, the suspect was arrested only a few hundred meters away and taken into custody. This response was extremely timely, and thankfully no one was hurt. July 28th, while on patrol on Mountain Road, in the Killam Road area, one of our patrol members observed a person on a motorcycle in a parking lot. As the member attempted to intercept the rider for a traffic offense, the driver attempted to flee, however, was unable to leave the location because of a vehicle malfunction. The member quickly arrested the suspect, and subsequent to the arrest, a large amount of crystal methamphetamine, a flare gun, which had been modified into an illegal prohibited shotgun, and other drugs were found. And the individual also had outstanding warrants of arrest. He was detained and remanded into custody. On August 8th, Kodiak Patrol responded to a report of a possible impaired driver at a business in Dieppe, and this spilled over in a large part of our area. After a speedy patrol of the scene, members located the vehicle, which was in fact stolen. Several individuals were taken into custody, and what followed the next day on August 9th was a coordinated effort between our patrol, our crime reduction unit, and our criminal intelligence unit. A total of 8 people were arrested, including 3 adults and 5 youths. A total of 4 stolen vehicles were located and recovered. And through information from our analysts, we confirmed that this group had been the primary drivers of vehicle thefts this summer. The same group was also involved in other vehicle thefts and violent offenses earlier this year in Moncton and in the surrounding areas. Some have been remanded into custody and others have been released on conditions. The Provincial Tactical Traffic Enforcement Unit, were in the Kodiak area on August 2nd. As always, we partnered with them to conduct a full-day traffic enforcement blitz. Members focused on the hotspots in all 3 communities, targeting dangerous driving, distracted driving, as well as unsafe vehicles. In that one-day event, a total of 149 traffic tickets were issued across the area. 5 vehicles were towed, and check stops were performed in several areas. This week is going to be a very busy week, as we all know. The YQM concert is ongoing in Dieppe. We are ready for that. We have resources from around the area that are here to assist us to make sure that the event is safe for concert goers and residents of the entire Kodiak area as parties and festivities spill over in the 3 communities. And finally, Mayor Arnold, I'd like to thank Councillor Lejar for his interest in our police observer program. Councillor Lejar recently spent a day on patrol with Inspector White, where he had the chance to observe members of Kodiak RCMP in action in a variety of roles. Our police observer program is a great opportunity for potential applicants to get a glimpse of what they can expect if they choose a career in policing, and give others a glimpse of realities that we face every day. Merci, Conseiller Lejar. Thank you, Mayor Arnold.
Well, thank you, Superintendent. Sounds like a very busy time with you and your members. My goodness. Are there any questions for the Superintendent? I don't see any. Thank you for being here. I'm glad that technology worked out for you. I think we're good. Okay. Thank you. Good.
I think there's 2 questions, Mayor Arnold.
Are there? Sorry, I can't see them. Where are they?
There's Marty, Councillor Kingston. Go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know why I can't see them. Anyway, go ahead, Councillor Kingston.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. Ben, the Police Observer Program, that's open to all of us, I'm assuming, as councillors. Obviously, that would be something I'm very much interested in, and I salute Councillor Lejar for jumping in. So that is something you're extending to all of us on council, Ben?
Exactly.
thing, absolutely. If anybody's interested, they just have to reach into myself or Inspector White and we'll make it happen.
And the tactical traffic enforcement numbers, again, they just get higher and higher. I mean, it's amazing what is discovered, uncovered in one day of activity from the tactical traffic enforcement unit. So job well done. Obviously, we'd love to have them here more often. That's an ongoing conversation, of course, and you know, much debate coming on that. But it's certainly a wonderful job with the towed vehicles, suspended licenses, assurances, and the whole gamut of things. So just job well done to the technical enforcement. Love to have them here more often. Thank you, Madam Madness. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Councillor Keeson. And I believe there's another councillor. Is it you, Councillor Legier?
I just want to comment, Superintendent. Thank you to Inspector White. It was it's very interesting to sort of see, I guess, what's actually happening on the streets. The way it worked was we shadowed officers as they went to calls, and so it was really a good opportunity to kind of witness a variety of different events and some of the things that the RCMP are called upon to do related to mental health and related to crime and so on. So it was really good, and I encourage everyone. It really does give you some insight in terms of the challenges that you have. I think you're looking very forward to your new building, and so rightfully so, because it hasn't gotten much better in terms of some of the challenges. But I applaud you though, and certainly enjoyed my day. So pass that along to Inspector White, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I will.
Terrific. Unless there's anyone, is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Do not see anyone else. Speak now? No? Okay. Thank you, Superintendent.
Back to planning matters, public hearing rezoning and municipal plan amendments at 227, 229 Cadieux Street, 233, 235 Cadieux Street, NLFP P for PID 70701214 housekeeping. And I believe that Bill Budd is here again to provide us an update.
Yes. So good evening again, Council. I believe that this is a public hearing on a housekeeping amendment. If we go to the next slide, it's an administration-initiated housekeeping amendment to formalize the zoning from a previous land exchange to improve and increase the neighborhood park in the area. We go to the next slide. Purpose of the rezoning is to rezone 227, 229, and 233 and 235 Cadieux Street from P1 community use to R22 unit residential zone, and the adjacent property identified as PID 70701214, land from public purposes from R22 unit residential to P1 community use. And this will require an amendment to Schedule 1 of the municipal plan to amend the land use designation from community use to neighborhood and neighborhood to community use respectively. And if we look at this slide, it's located in Ward 1 on the north side of Cadieux Street, west of McIntosh Boulevard in the Sterling Meadows subdivision. And this subdivision was before council at a public meeting in October of 2022 for approval and a land exchange of land for public purposes and 2 existing lands zoned R2. And unfortunately, when we did the land exchange, we missed the zoning. So this is just a housekeeping to correct that. We go to the next slide. This just shows the proposed zoning changes. So on the first slide, the 2 etched red lots are the ones going to be zoned to R2, and the green with red etched is the one going to P1 community use. And similarly, on the right are the municipal plan amendments designating the land's neighborhood and community use. So if we go to the next slide, administration's recommending council approve this, and I don't believe there were any objections received to this application. So I'll turn it back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Bill. And yes, we are in a public hearing. My understanding is there are no objections to this, but I would ask if there is anyone who has an objection to this right now and wishes to speak, to please do so. Nobody has registered to speak, but I just wanted to make sure. You see none, and I'm assuming the proponent is not here either tonight. Are there any specific questions from council at this time? All right, at this time I will adjourn the public hearing. And Deputy Mayor Terrio, do you wish to move this recommendation? Yes, thank you. Is there a seconder for it? Thank you. I think that's who's on the top right there. Wait a minute. Oh, Councillor Kingston has seconded it. Thank you. Any questions? On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Next is a public hearing for 4 Curry Street. There were some objections received.
Wonderful.
Welcome back, Bill. Is it Bill?
Perfect. Everyone's able to hear me okay?
Dylan. Yes, welcome, Dylan.
So our next item is going to be a rezoning application that we have for 4 Curry Street. So this was originally introduced to council in July. It went to the PAC during their last monthly meeting, and here we are for the public hearing. I'm going to just begin by giving a brief overview of the application, and then we'll open up to the public hearing where we'll hear from council, the proponents who are in the room today, as well as any members of the public who are wishing to speak for or against this project. So simply, it's just a rezoning application to rezone the property from R2U, urban dwelling, to R3, multiple unit dwelling, to accommodate a 3-story, 18-unit apartment building. If we go to the next slide. The property is located in Ward 1, south of Donald Avenue, which is one of the main east-west collectors in the Sunnybrae neighborhood area. Slide. As you'll see from the aerial view, the property consists of 2 properties that are highlighted here in red. As part of this development, the proponents be looking to consolidate those 2 properties into one in order to accommodate their proposed development. If we're to look at some of the surrounding land uses and zones in the area, we have a 4-story apartment building that's zoned R3 immediately to the north. There are 2 8-unit apartment buildings zoned R2U to the east. We have the former CN Pension Center directly to the south, as well as the former Sunnybrae Rink, and a number of well-established single-unit dwellings along Donald Avenue, all zoned R2U today. The property under its current zoning has the development rights to build an apartment building up to 8 units, similar to what we see on the east side of Curry Street. However, having worked through this development with the proponents, we felt it was more appropriate to have a single building that allowed a bit more density yield, given the property's unique location within the Sunnybrae area, but also the need for more diverse housing choices within this neighborhood. Slide. So here we have the site plan that was submitted by the applicants. So the building is proposed to be located in the southeast corner of the lot. And this location was preferred to minimize the siting of the building in relation to those single unit dwellings on Donald Avenue, but also to reduce any risk of overshadowing. The primary entrance to the building will front Curry Street. Meanwhile, there's a secondary entrance along the rear portion of the building that will enable tenant access to and from the building. The driveway entrance is located on the north side of the building. the development plans are accounting for 20 surface parking spaces. So it's representing a parking ratio of 1.11 spaces per unit. They're also proposing a landscaping buffer around the site. So where you see there in green, and that will be outfitted with a 2-meter opaque fence, trees, and shrubbery. As part of this development, we'll just go back to the previous slide, if you don't mind. Thank you. As part of this development, the proponents were required to hire a certified wetland delineator. And through that process, they had determined that there is a wetland on the adjacent property where the Sunnybrae Rink is. And this is over, I believe it's 2 hectares in area, and it's contiguous with the Halls Creek. So in order to develop on this land, which falls within that protected 30-meter buffer, they were required to apply for and get what is called a wetland and watercourse alteration permit approved. So that happened in May and June of this year, where the Department of Environment would have approved this site plan based on a set of terms and conditions to help mitigate any future alterations to the existing wetland on the adjacent property. The wetland delineator would have also picked up this ditch that falls along 3 sides of this property. So I know that when we had sent this out for public notice, most of the comments that came back from surrounding neighbors were concerns about, flooding on their property or risk to this existing stream. So this was picked up by the wetland delineator and sent to the Department of Environment, and it was determined that this would not fall under the definition of a stream. It is in fact a ditch, similar to a swale that we see in most of our own subdivisions. So the way the water is running today, it runs from Donald Avenue, which would be upland from this development, and it would fall across this property and into Halls Creek. All that ditch will be retained in its existing location, and then any runoff caused by pavement associated with the parking lot or the structure itself is actually going to be captured within the parking lot. So they have a number of catch basins, and that parking lot will act as a bowl, and then any water like runoff where in that landscaping area will run into the existing ditch, but at a lesser level than pre-development. And so I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. We will go to the next slide. Thank you. So above grade, the applicants are proposing what is, in my opinion, a modern and attractive building. It's going to be completely outfitted in traditional materials. They have also incorporated architectural features in this building that are reflective of the Sunnybrae neighborhood area. So they have incorporated these window grids along the windows that are going to be fronting Curry Street, as well as this stained canopy, stained lumber canopy over the main entrance. And it's that entrance isn't depicted here on the renderings, but are within the elevation drawings that were part of council's package, but were also shared on the City of Moncton's website. From a planning perspective, this project, it's meets the long-term vision of the Sunnybrae neighborhood plan by providing more housing choices in the neighborhood. So in 2009, the city would have conducted a secondary planning exercise specifically for the Sunnybrae area with really 2 goals in mind. One of the goals would have been to identify what are the core residential zones where we want to maintain single and 2-unit dwellings, and where do we want to promote higher density development, apartment buildings. And these 2 properties, which have remained vacant since as early as 1970, were identified at that time as being an area where we want to encourage higher density development. And that's what we have here being proposed. With that in mind, we did receive 4 objection letters. Sorry, there's a little bit of interference going on. We did receive 3 or 4 objection letters. Those were also posted on our website and were related to this property being located within a flood-prone area and the impact that this development will have on potential flood risk to neighboring properties. But as I mentioned, this project will be meeting our net zero engineering requirements, and all the water runoff from those properties on Donald Avenue would actually be running towards this property, so that they're having to, deal with it and manage it accordingly. With that, if we'll go to the next slide, administration is recommending that Moncton City Council approve this zoning bylaw amendment, being bylaw Z-222.33, subject to a resolution with those conditions listed here, and were attached within council's package and are also located on the City of Moncton's website. Thank you.
So this is a public hearing. Is the proponent here and do they wish to speak?
They are present, but they will take questions if required.
Okay, great. At this time, I understand there are 2 objectors who have requested to speak. Who do you have up?
I have Courtney Amel.
Courtney, the floor is yours.
Courtney is on the phone. There she is. Go
Hi,
ahead.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. In the message that I sent along with my my concerns, I wouldn't say objections, but more concerns about the changing of the zoning sense for this project, is, as was mentioned, primarily due with the flooding risk. When we asked the province for a copy of the watercourse and wetland alteration permit, there was no mention of the so-called ditch or the stream, as we call it. So I am pleased to hear that our concerns were raised with the province. One of the challenges with this waterway is that it is much more obvious and visible during the spring, fall, where water from the Sunnybrae sort of neighborhood and hill seems to follow above ground and possibly below ground courses into that little stream area. So it's quite significant in the spring, and then depending on weather conditions, dries out over the course of the summer and fall. And so our main concerns is hearing from the developer, what are the measures that will be taken to ensure that this stream is carefully preserved so that that waterway in the spring is able to accommodate the water that comes towards it. And also what measures will be put into place in order to ensure that there isn't erosion, again, because of the rise and fall of this waterway, that there isn't erosion that happens on the side of the development that would ultimately clog up the waterway and cause blockages that could potentially flood our properties. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Courtney. I believe there is somebody else as well.
Jacques Arsenault. I'm not sure if he was able to connect or not.
Jacques, are you on? Jacques Arsenault. My understanding is he might have had some issues connecting. So I would ask our city clerk perhaps to read his objection, which I think is fairly similar to Courtney's, but
yes, it is. Find it. Make it bigger. So I'm not young anymore. The reason we are opposed to the rezoning of 4 Curry Street is because of the risk of flooding that will affect neighboring properties. Our property is located along the plot of land and may be affected by the development of the 3-story residential buildings. Following the reading of the documents sent to us by the public notice, we are considering serious flood problems that will affect our property located on Donald Avenue. And the properties of plots PID 007705778, PID 007700560, and PID 007705552. Throughout our property is a small stream that runs along the plot plan for the development of the building. The City of Moncton is aware of this small stream since in the past we have received a request from the city to spread granulants to counter effects the mosquitoes in wetlands. We observed that a permit to modify a watercourse for wetland was issued on June 17, 2024 by the Ministry of Environment and Local Governments. The permit was granted without consultation with the owners of the surrounding plots of land and does not take into account the wetlands and the small stream that are on both of our land and also on the plots that are part of the development project. It is very important that the City of Moncton and the province of New Brunswick be vigilant. Stuck here. Vigilant when planning to develop buildings that are on wetlands and small streams. We live on Donald Avenue for more than 20 years, and we know that every spring the stream overflows and the water flow follows its course and pours into Hall Street. If we go back to the water source of the small stream in question, we have found that the groundwater is coming from the underground stream on the hillside of Sunnybray. The risk of flooding during development projects, wetlands cannot be ignored. The climate change we are experiencing at the moment has shown that we must be more careful in all development of wetlands.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else online who has an objection to this project and wishes to speak? Anyone at all? Anyone in the lobby that has an objection and wishes to speak to this? Okay, at this time then, I would ask Dylan or the proponent, Courtney outlined it fairly well. What are the measures to ensure the stream will be protected? And are there any measures as far as erosion that can be taken as well? So if you could address those items.
Of course. So to be clear, there are no requirements to consult for a WAWA permit. It is a process specifically between the proponent and the Department of Environment. We are not dealing with a stream. The soil conditions and the features of that ditch were described in a report and presented to the Department of Environment, and it is in fact a ditch that was made for drainage purposes. As part of this development, they would have submitted a drainage plan that is respecting the existing conditions of that ditch, knowing that it's important for those properties that are upland. And in fact, they are incorporating additional measures to capture stormwater on their site. So in theory, they should be producing less runoff that would be otherwise going to that ditch post conditions. So they'll be improving the drainage conditions for their particular site that would otherwise be contributing to that ditch. And then within the WAWA permit itself, they are highlighting a number of other conditions that come to all these measures when it comes to how you store your vehicles and the state of your vehicles, or these type of fences that they'll have to put up, all to protect the boundaries of the wetland. But none of these conditions within the WAWA permit are going to apply to that ditch because it doesn't fall under the definition of a stream or watercourse that would be regulated by the Clean Water Act, as per the Department of Environment.
Okay. Does the proponent wish to speak to this at all?
Would you like to add? No, nothing to add at this time.
Okay. I would now go back to any objectors. If there's anything further that they wish to ask, is there Anyone who has any other concerns they wish to bring up at this time? Okay, then I would open it to council for questions. Council, are there any questions that you might have? I have Deputy Mayor, and then I have Councillor Richard. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Merci, Madame la Maire. Dylan, you may have explained this. I'm not sure I understood. What is the difference between where they want to build the location and where the Coliseum is, the old Coliseum? Because we've been saying you can't build there because it is wetland.
Yeah, there are a number of other issues there with that other piece of land, but I guess this property or any of like the development, like the landscaping or parking, doesn't fall within the boundaries of the wetland. It falls within the boundaries of this 30-meter protective buffer that they established to protect the edge of the wetlands, if that makes sense.
And none of the thank you, Dylan. None of those who are opposed have spoken to me about this. So, but Jacques Arsenault at 52 Donald Avenue. How close will this new building be to this property, to the end of their property?
At 52
the reason I'm
Donald?
asking is because they have the most beautiful, incredible garden. I had the pleasure of visiting it, and I just hope that this is a great project, by the way, but I just hope that it doesn't destroy their space.
No, of course not. So any development that's happening here is going to be limited to the boundaries of their property line and will not be able to go on adjacent properties, right? So none of the trees or gardens that are on 52 Donald will be impacted by this development. If you would like a better idea of how close this building or parking are going to be to that property, maybe we can pull up the site plan.
That would be great.
That'd be helpful, yeah.
Yes.
You also have it on your iPad, Councillor
Yeah.
Terry.
I'll just ask IT. Yeah, thank you.
It's coming out, yeah. Okay, here it comes.
So would 52 Donald, you would know better than I, would it be this property here?
I haven't, okay, my challenge is reading this map, so
Okay.
I'm not sure.
So here you have the property boundaries of this lot, and then this would be the apartment building on Curry, and then these four lots would be all like those long-standing single-unit dwellings I was speaking to earlier. But most of these are like their backyards where their houses would be closer to Donald Avenue, as you know.
I'm sorry, Dylan, I'm not, I looked at the map, but I don't really understand. I can't see where.
Okay, so maybe we can go back 2 slides before here. There's an aerial view, or wonderful, actually, sorry, this one here. So where the building is going to be taking place.
You see that? You can see on screen now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The building will be located like in the southeast corner. Meanwhile, those houses on Donald Avenue are located over here to give you a perspective. Just keep in mind that this is an aerial view at an angle, so it's not a bird's eye view per se.
Okay, I can see it better now. Thank you, Dylan. Thank you.
Councillor Richard.
Merci, Madame la Maire. Thank you very much, Dylan, for the presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Some more information on the permit, on the Wawa permit, and so how you get from 30-meter buffer into removed almost 20 meters. Looks like.
Yeah. So there, again, this falls outside of our process, right? For this, it's not that they're just required to come up with ways to protect the buffer through their construction. So it's not like these lands, yes, they're saturated, but they're not part of the wetland itself. It would be part of the buffer zone, and the Department of Environment has given their permission to develop in that area if you follow these requirements through your construction process to make sure that, you're limiting the amount of disturbance to the buffer zone and wetland. I don't know if you have anything
I'm not going to
like
ask
that or, yeah.
But so I'm not going to ask you to bring the site plan up again, but the parking lot is into that buffer zone.
Correct.
To the 30 meter, right?
Yes.
Okay. So and I understand you're saying it's basically between the developer and the government.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, and I don't know if you have this answer. I'm guessing you do. Would that be public information though? Is that something that the public can go find?
I don't know if that's a great question. I can ask the Department of Environment in the future. But from my understanding, it's not on like Service New Brunswick, or it's not held on title. Normally, this is a requirement that we ask at the permitting phase, right? So before they can get a building permit, they need to have this watercourse and wetland alteration permit in hand. Normally, we ask for it up front through the rezoning to make sure that they're okay with what's being proposed. But no, normally it's not public information, but I'll confirm that with Department of Environment for sure.
Okay, I mean, we had the information in our package. So that was presented there, but
yeah, and I believe I also posted it on the City of Moncton's website too through our public notice, so it was available there.
So that information is there. Okay, no, that's great. Just wondering on that. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you. So this is the final ask. If there is anyone online, in the lobby, anyone at all who has any questions. If not, I don't. Is there anyone? Anyone? I'm sorry.
Courtney.
Courtney? Courtney, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Just to address the question of whether the watercourse and wetland alteration permit is available to the public. When we received this notice as citizens, we did not have access to that document. It was not part of the public consultation document.
Okay.
We did request a copy directly from the province, which we were able to receive, owing to a small fee to get access to the document. But I think these types of documents are actually quite important for citizens to have access to in really getting a sense of, what are the actions that are being taken and what are the conditions that the developers are being held to in terms of the approval of this permit. So wanted to mention that. The other quick point I wanted to raise, and I don't have any qualifications to get into a debate about what the difference between a ditch and a stream is, frankly. But my concern is that when this assessment was done, the way the ground looks from a visual assessment is so incredibly different than how it is in the spring. And so I hope that the developers will be taking into account that this ditch, if we call it that, or stream, as we prefer to call it, is a rather significant waterway in the spring. And so I understand the province approved the Wawa on the basis of different consultations, a certified wetland delineator on site, etc. And I understand that they're not held to consult with us as residents who reside around the property. Had there been allowances for that, we would have been able to provide that additional information, which could have led to maybe some additional wording in terms of the conditions of approval here. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Courtney. Councillor Legier.
Thank you. Two things. I think a follow-up to what was just said. What is the process to adequately provide the residents with the, with the conviction that the ditch will be well done and that it will indeed continue to serve in terms of water capture during the spring? It's one thing to mention it, but it's another thing to have a plan layout on what the ditch will look like and what the expectation is of the builder. And is that captured anywhere? Is this something that could be a condition that indicates that the ditch that now functions as a ditch, but it does function to carry water away, would be maintained?
And yes, no, that's a great point, Councilor Legier. But all that is actually taken into account through the city's processes at the building permit stage. All of that is already in place. So they submitted a drainage plan.
Yes.
Then they will be finalizing that drainage plan that will account for the ditch, account for what infrastructure they're putting on place through the permitting stage. And that's a requirement for all new development in the city of Moncton.
So in this development, I understand that there's a drainage plan, but in this one, it includes the ditch, and the ditch will be altered if it is, or I guess building inspection will be guaranteeing that the ditch will actually continue to work in the way that it has been working over the past several years, now that this new development will be, if it does move forward, be placed on these properties.
Correct.
Okay. And my second observation on one of the, I think it was the layout of the apartment and so on, I noticed a couple of encroachments, and noticed that in particular a deck, and then they're going to remove. So that has those negotiations or those discussions have taken place, and the properties that had built infrastructure on adjacent land will at their cost have to remove it. And do we look at whether or not there were permits issued, and what ramifications do those have? Because this is a situation where it was green space, but it actually was property that was owned. Just maybe some comment on the process.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. So the short answer is that it has all been considered and managed through the developer. Kindly reached out to them and talked about what their plans and everything were before this was introduced to council, and went through what their options were. The deck, I believe, it's not going to be removed from site. What they'll have to do is come up with an encroachment agreement, which is will be taken care of by a lawyer. There were a couple options and everything available to them because they have the right to use this property for access and access alone, not to store a vehicle. So the location of the driveway is in that location so that can maintain the spirit of that agreement and capture the right of way, and allow them to access their property. And they'll be able to park next to their garden suite by the end of this. So,
okay. Yeah. All right. Well, it's very good to hear. So thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Councillor Edgett.
No, sorry, I'm good, thanks. I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Last call. Okay, I will declare this public hearing adjourned. At this time, I would take a motion from council. Thank you, Councillor Edgett. Is there a seconder for that? For the recommendation on the floor. Thank you, Councillor Legier. On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Dylan.
Have a great evening.
Next is item 7.4. It's a public hearing amendment of conditional rezoning resolution for Eastgate Village. I believe Sarah Anderson is going to present.
Good evening, everyone.
Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. All right. Can everyone hear me okay?
Okay.
All right. So this is a rezoning application for Z 222.6.1. You can go to next slide, thanks. So this is an application to amend specific conditions in the previously approved resolution of council and to amend the approved zoning to accommodate adjustments to the street layout and adjustments to the location of land for public purposes in just the northern section of PID 705-73126, which is just phase 1 of the development for Eastgate Village on Elmwood Drive. The application involves rezoning lands from R2 2-unit dwelling and R3 multiple unit dwelling to P1 community use, and from P1 to R1B single unit dwelling, R2 and RM residential mix. It also involves rezoning lands from RM to R2 and R3, from R2 and R3 to RM, and from P2 conservation to P1. Next slide, please. So this site is located in the northern part of the city, and it's in Ward 1. It's just north of Granite Drive. In 2022, the site was conceptually master planned, and it was successfully rezoned to a mix of zones and mix of densities for a mixed density neighborhood. At this time, the landowner is looking to go forward with phase 1, which is just that northern portion of the overall site, and it's shown here in red hatched in that map. Next slide. So through the detailed design of phase 1, a new street layout is being proposed to create a more efficient grid network. The top left image shows the originally approved street layout. The phase 1 portion is what's circled in red. On the top right, we see the new proposed street layout. As you can see in the bottom left image, the new street layout, it doesn't really align with the current zoning layers, and so this application attempts to fix those conflicts. The new proposed zoning is shown in the image on the right-hand side. Next slide, please. So this revised street network also accommodates a second or an emergency access for this phase as well. Generally, a street can only be constructed to a certain length before a second access is required. Originally, the northern portion of the site was proposed to build out at the same time as the southern portion, and so by connecting those two sections, each would get a second access as shown on the image in the top left. However, as the landowner is proposing to focus just on phase 1, which is just in that northern portion to start, in order to fully build out that portion, a second access is needed. So the proposal is to use some of the LFPP, or the land for public purposes, just for a temporary period until the southern portion builds out and connects to the northern portion with a public street. The proposed emergency route is shown in the image in the top right. So that is just right here, circled in red. This would be an emergency access only. It will be designed and built to discourage regular vehicles from using it as an access. Once the access is no longer needed, the landowner will be required to reinstate the access as a public trail to the specifications of the parks and engineering departments. So this was felt to be a reasonable, oh, go back, please. Thank you. This was felt to be a reasonable compromise that would enable the development to build out in a phased way, and the trail would then be built and paid for by the developer rather than the city. So additionally, after further discussions, some minor modifications are also being proposed to the location of the LFPP around the pond for a more efficient trail network and connection to Irishtown Nature Park. So this also requires some minor adjustments to the zoning layer. And the last proposed change to the zoning is due to the changing street classification for the revised street layout. So the classification of Street A, which is the street circled in the map shown in the bottom left. So it's right here, this kind of street that goes down like that. That was originally a local street. In this new design, it's turned into more of a collector street, which is shown in this image right here. It's a longer, busier street. Collectors tend to be busier streets where higher density dwellings are more ideally suited. So in this case, the final reason for the zone change is to permit townhouses to be built along both sides of that Street A, rather than just the south side, which was what the original proposal called for. At this time, there is a need for more sort of ground-oriented missing middle type housing, and townhouses do meet that need. They meet that gentle higher density that integrates well with lower density housing that is just north of here. So for this reason, administration felt that it was reasonable to include a zone amendment for that northern side of Street A to permit townhouses in those locations. With these maps, I can also address a question that was raised when this was introduced to council in July regarding the Eastgate School. So part of the original application application in 2022 was the inclusion of a new school for Eastgate Academy, which is a private IB or International Baccalaureate school. The proposed location for the school is located in phase 3 of the subject development. And so that is located right here at sort of the back end. The school is located, in the bottom left-hand portion. Eastgate Academy has currently been operating out of a location in Riverview, and at this point they've pretty much outgrown that location. As the new long-term permanent location is still to be in this Eastgate Village, it's not ready yet. The school has therefore purchased a building on Millennium Drive, and they are renovating it to fit their needs in the interim until they sort of grow a little bit more. This location in Eastgate Village will be ready once the upgrades to Elmwood Drive are complete. So at this time, the plan is still to move forward being with Eastgate Village as the permanent location of the school in this community. Next slide, please. So this application also involves a few proposed amendments to the conditions that were originally approved as part of the rezoning in 2022. So the first one relates to the stormwater runoff. The landowner is proposing to alter the existing pond at the front of the lot and turn it into a retention pond. So that is this pond right here. The proposal is to then drain stormwater from just the first 142 units into that pond, which would then be released at a controlled rate to the ditches along the west side of Elmwood Drive. This is a proposed change from the original requirement, which was to drain to the east side ditches. However, through sort of more detailed design and investigation, that would have created a number of negative impacts to the Irishtown Nature Park, either that or going all the way down Elmwood Drive to Cormier Avenue to create a new outfall down in that part of the road. It was felt that just draining these 142 units into the existing ditches on the east side was a less impactful scenario, and so it was supported by administration. Next slide, please. So the second condition that was requested to be changed is about the emergency access road. The original condition stated simply that an emergency access was to be created. The change to the condition would add specific details around the timing for the road and require that the details be included in a subdivision agreement. An additional condition is also being added to include details around the reinstatement of that emergency access into a trail, which would also be included in the subdivision agreement. Next slide, please. So the third requested change relates to the type of development permitted in that first phase. So due to constraints in the sanitary system, only 142 units are permitted before that sanitary system gets upgraded, which will be part of the future upgrades to Elmwood Drive. The original condition limited those 142 units to just single unit homes, semi-detached homes or 2 units, and townhouses, and the condition specifically did not permit any multiple units to be part of that total number. But by permitting some of that 142 units within multiple unit dwellings, the development is more efficient and it requires less street to be constructed as more units can be built within that smaller footprint. And this was felt to be a reasonable request. Next slide, please. So finally, one new condition is being added through this application, as the Irishtown Nature Park is located directly across Elmwood Drive from the development. So it's right over here. Many of the residents living in this neighborhood will likely be looking to cross the street to access the park by foot, and having a safe pedestrian crossing in this location is desirable. So a new condition is being proposed that would require the landowner to put a signalized pedestrian crossing before the construction of any more than 100 residential units. So all of the requested amendments are reasonable, they are minor, and the application provides an opportunity for administration to clarify a few of the current conditions and add 2 new conditions, including one that will trigger the requirement for a pedestrian crossing prior to the construction of more than 100 units. Next slide, please. So therefore, the recommendation is that Moncton City Council approve the zoning bylaw amendment, being bylaw Z 222.6.1 and Schedule A-6.1, subject to an amended resolution with conditions including, but not limited to, and the next 4 or 5 slides are, there's, I believe, 18 conditions. I can read them into the record if folks want me to, but it's a lot of conditions. So we can end it with that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So we are in a public hearing. I'm wondering if the applicant or developer has anything that they wanted to add.
Nope, they're here to answer questions though if needed.
Okay, great. I don't believe there are any objections to this, but I would ask at this time, is there anyone online, anyone in the lobby there that wishes to speak?
Nope, nobody here.
No, I don't think there's anyone online either. Council, do you have any questions at this time? And I remind you, it's question. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Legier.
Sarah, when you mention extra density, so at the end of the day, the capacity originally was for 142 units, but now the additional multi-units will still reach the same capacity that was granted initially, but with different types of housing. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. The pond, you mentioned it's going to be changed to become a retention pond. So what are the steps to transfer that into a retention pond? And is it under city supervision to create that in a acceptable and fashion as opposed to what was originally part of the application?
In terms of the steps, if it will become part of it would become part of their drainage plan. So they would submit drainage and grading plan, landscaping plans, that sort of thing. That would be reviewed at time of permitting by the engineering department, reviewed and back and forth, and then accepted. So that's how it would be.
And when does that take place in terms of actual building taking place? Does it happen simultaneously, or is it when you reach a threshold, a certain amount of homes? How would that work?
So when they submit for a building permit, for example, they submit building plans and engineering drawings at the same time. So the permit can only be issued once both sides sign off. So if there's an issue with the building plans or issues with the engineering plans, that building permit can't be issued for the first building.
Okay. So my understanding then, the lands for public purpose will be used as an emergency road, and then it will revert back to becoming a trail. Is that what I heard correctly? Okay. And where does that trail line up with the entrance of Irishtown Nature Park?
So, and this was part of the changes as well, that once we kind of did a little bit more detailed work on this. So the trail will come down, it will basically run across the top end of the neighborhood for the majority of that part. It will come down, I don't know if I have a plan I can show you, but it will come down where sort of Street A intersects with Street B, and then go towards Elmwood, and then cut down along the pond and hit Street A. Street A will have the crosswalk. So that was where it was. The original plan was that the LFBP trail would go across the top end of the pond, and it would come out to Elmwood Drive, but that's not where the crosswalk is. So this kind of allows us to fix that.
So will there be additional trail then that will run parallel to Elmwood Drive and bring them down to where they need to safely cross at a crosswalk?
Yes, it'll be parallel to Elmwood, but on the other side of the pond, basically. You'll have the trail, then you'll have the pond, then you'll have Elmwood.
Okay, all right. But it will allow for a safe route to the crosswalk and to be able to cross over.
Yes.
Okay. And let me see here. So we talk about the school, and I understand the sense of urgency with respect to the school situation at the moment, and that this is temporary. But is there any assurance that indeed a school will go there? And I guess I would want to know, is there a purchase and sale agreement, some type of agreement indicating that as this develops and when we get to phase 4, there will actually be a school built there? Because that was extremely important during the whole deliberations related to this rezoning.
Right now, the land is zoned for a school. So as far as we know now, that is still the intent. when looking sort of logistically at the Eastgate School, it makes sense. They are still a smaller school. Chances are, if they go according to their plans, they will build and grow to be bigger than what that property on Millennium will ever hold. So I guess we can't tell the future, but it looks good that is what will happen, that is the plan, and there should be no reason why that doesn't turn out.
And if it didn't turn out and there was no school built there, then that would require rezoning to
Correct.
change the use. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Steves.
Thank you, Mayor Arnold. Thank you, Sarah. I have some similar questions as Councillor Legier. Two questions in particular. The first one is there a proposed timeline? If this is approved tonight, is there a proposed timeline by the developer of when it would begin and when it would ideally finish? Speaking of phase one particularly.
It is my understanding that they are very anxious to get going. I expect they would be coming in for a permit as soon as they can. Tonight, we'll also be dealing with the subdivision plan. And so they're also working on that, which is also needed in order to move forward. So they're putting their ducks in a row and doing what they can to get going as quickly as possible.
Do you believe that it's a 2-year project once it begins? Is it a 3-year project? How long would phase one and that many houses take?
3 years approximately. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My second question, Sarah, revolves around the Eastgate School as well. My question is, does Eastgate have an agreement for that property with the developer, or is that land available for a school and another private school could come in who is ready and work out a deal with the developer? How close is Eastgate and the developer in an agreement? Is that just verbal or is that contractual?
I may pass that off. I'm not really my place. Sure, if you want to come up, if you'd like to.
Thank you very much for the question, Councillor. So I sit in a unique position because I also sit on the board of directors of Eastgate Academy. So we're working very diligently to get through the time at Millennial. The single biggest issue right now is of course, we can't do anything with the school until we get Elmwood Drive widened, because that's the only way that the school can be enabled. When it comes to whether it's Eastgate or any other private school, basically the agreement consists of the commercial terms, and embedded into commercial terms is a right of first refusal. So if for some reason Eastgate is taking longer as a school identity and there's another school that comes along, they'll be given the opportunity to proceed as a right of first refusal. And if they choose not to, then it becomes available to any other usage as course as the zoning dictates, which is as a school.
Okay, thank you very much. Certainly, as we dream down the road of 3, 4, 5 years before we get into that third phase, and with the growth of Moncton, there may be another organization that comes along and may certainly want to ask you those questions. So, thank you so much for answering.
Thank you, Councillor Kingston.
Thank you, Madame Alice. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sarah, I was curious about the pedestrian crossing eventually that will jump over to Irishtown. Did you mention illuminated crosswalk? Or I mean, I immediately thought, knowing that area pretty well as we all do, that to stop heavy traffic on Irishtown Road at any time of the day, it's a minor leap of faith. So, what type of pedestrian crossing were we envisioning for Irishtown Road?
I expect that the engineering department would have to look at that a little bit more closely at the time, but we definitely talked about, I think it was the overhead lit pedestrian crossing.
Right.
If Renee is online, I'm not sure if you were at that. Yeah, was the overhead?
Yeah, Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Kingston. It's a half signal, meaning it's essentially a traffic light, similar to what we see on University Avenue by the Georges Dumont. Whereas when it's activated by a pedestrian, it actually triggers a red light for
Mill Road would have one,
vehicles.
but-
So it's similar in nature.
Go ahead, sorry, Renee, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, sorry. It was exactly the same format as what we have on University. That's what we envisioned for now.
Okay. Thank you, René. Merci, Madame Hades. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you. At this time, I would ask if there is anyone at all, anyone in the lobby, anyone online who has a question or wishes to speak. All right. If not, then I will declare this public hearing adjourned. And I believe Deputy Mayor, you wish to move it?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Kingston. Any questions on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 7.5 is Eastgate Village subdivision. And I believe that Mr. Budd is here to give the presentation.
Yes, this is related to the rezoning application council just approved, and the subdivision plan proposes to create 4 new streets, land for public purposes, and several lots for future development and stormwater detention purposes. And it's located in Ward 1 off of Elmwood Drive. We go to the next slide. You're aware of the location. If we go to the next slide, this is the purpose of the plan, and it shows you creating 20 new building lots. It's creating Stanton Street, Salona Street, LaBegue Street, Future Street, land for public purposes, a lot for stormwater detention purposes, and a 5-meter public utility easement along proposed streets. If we go to the next slide, this has been the proposed street names come from, this is the background, Stanton Street. It's an English name named after Benjamin Stanton, settled at the Bend in 1827 and was one of the first shipbuilders in the region. LaBegue Street is a French name meaning wave, a nod to the tidal bore, and Petitcodiac River is the background on this name. And Salona Street, it's Spanish for sunny side, and these names reflect the cultural diversity in Moncton. This is the overall subdivision plan. And if we go to the next slide, this has been well covered. It incorporates the secondary emergency access that Sarah explained. If we go to the next slide, we're recommending council proceed with this as per the various street name approvals and future street approval and land for public purpose approval. And the next slide, subject to these standard conditions. And so I turn it back to you, Your Worship.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Is there someone who wishes to move this recommendation? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is there a seconder for that? Anyone? Thank you, Councillor Butler. Any questions? I see none. Speak now? No? On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
As per council's direction at the approval of the agenda, we will now move to reports from administration, and we will hear the stop up and close for 1 Foundry Street. And I believe Keisha Williamson will be giving this presentation.
Thank you, Worship and members of council. The purpose tonight with this presentation is to commence the stop up and close process of a portion of Foundry Street south of Assumption Boulevard as shown in the survey plan of Warren Daigle of July 8th, 2024, and to recommend that council set a public hearing date to give first reading rather to the bylaw amendment to stop up and close that portion of Foundry Street and to set a date and time for a public hearing to correspond with that of the rezoning for October 7th. The matter is further to resolutions adopted at the regular public meeting of June 17th, declaring and designating a portion of the street as surplus for the purposes of economic development and directing administration to proceed with the disposition process. And so you'll see in the plan, and I don't see it on the screen there, but I know we have one. There is a survey plan that should be included in your package there.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So that is a standalone plan, and it should be noted that this is not the plan that will accompany any proposed sale or subdivision. This is strictly to stop up and close that portion of street. And that is really all that I have to say about this at the moment. And so the recommendation would be that that we proceed with the first reading this evening to commence the process, and I'll take any questions.
Terrific, thank you. Yes, so is there someone who wishes to move this recommendation? To stop up and close Foundry? Thank you, Councillor Crossman, seconded by Councillor Legier. Any questions? Again, this will come forward at a public hearing on October 7th.
That's the idea. Yes, we would ask that council recommend set a public hearing date for the 7th to correspond with the other public hearings on the matter.
I see no questions. On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
We will go back to the original order. Statements from members of councilors exposés des membres du conseil.
I don't see anyone.
Good.
Nope. Moving on.
Reports and recommendations from committee and private meetings. Rapport de recommandation des comités et réunions à huis clos. Ce soir, on a un du comité planier du 22 juillet.
We have one from the meeting of the July 21st.
July 22nd is recommending the following. The first motion before council is that Moncton City Council authorize the city to provide the Peter McKee Center with a one-time grant of $28,000 conditional on the province of New Brunswick providing the same level of funding to ensure that the center is able to continue to meet its food program demands in the face of increased security costs, and that this amount be funded from the council's contingency fund.
Terrific. Thank you. Is there someone who wishes to move this? Thank you, Councillor Butler, seconded by Councillor Kingston. Any questions? On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
The second motion from this meeting is that Moncton City Council approve the amendments identified in section 4.1 F2 and section 4.1 P highlighted and read in the video surveillance policy, which is attachment A.
Thank you. Is there someone who wishes to move this? Thank you, Councillor Legier. Is there a seconder for the video policy? Thank you, Councillor Steeves. Any questions on the policy? See none. On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
We're back to reports from administration et rapport de l'administration, and the 10.1 is a bylaw in waste collection, bylaw P424. And the motion before council is that Moncton City Council give first reading to the proposed bylaw P424, a bylaw relating to the collection and disposal of waste in the city of Moncton. I believe that Dawn Morehouse is online in case you have questions.
Thank you. Is there somebody who wishes to move this recommendation? Anyone? Thank you, Councillor Butler, seconded by Councillor Legier. Any questions on this? And again, this had to do, it was a bit of housekeeping, and it also had something to do with the local governance reform, just taking in a new area. So it's pretty straightforward. Any questions? Seeing none. On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, next is reading of bylaws, et lecture des arrêtés municipaux, and this evening we have 10 of them to read. The first 5, council has given me permission to provide first reading within the motions that were discussed earlier. So 11.1 is a bylaw relating to the waste collection of bylaw being bylaw P424. This is the first reading. Arrêté réglementant la collection et l'élimination des déchets dans la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté P424. C'est la première lecture. 11.2 is a bylaw, an amendment of a bylaw relating to the adoption of the City of Moncton's municipal plan. Being bylaw Z122.12, it's for Gateway. It's the first reading. Arrêté portant modification de l'arrêté concernant l'adoption du plan municipal de la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z122.10. C'est pour le complexe Gateway. 11.3 is a bylaw amendment of the City of Moncton zoning bylaw, being bylaw Z222.37. It's a first reading. This is also regarding Gateway. Arrêté portant modification de l'arrêté de zonage de la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z222.33. Gateway, c'est la première lecture. 11.4, a bylaw relating to the City of Moncton Downtown Core Community Improvement Plan, secondary municipal plan, being bylaw Z122D.1. Gateway, it's the first reading. Arrêté concernant l'adoption du plan de l'amélioration communautaire du noyau de la ville, du centre-ville, plan municipal secondaire de la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z122D.1. C'est encore relié à Gateway. Excusez. La dernière lecture pour la première lecture. Arrêté portant modification de l'arrêté concernant la fermeture des rues dans la ville de Moncton, soit l'arrêté T221.6, rue Foundry, c'est la première lecture. A bylaw and amendment of a bylaw relating to the stopping up and closing of highways within the City of Moncton, being bylaw T221.6, Foundry Street. These 5 bylaws will be posted on the City of Moncton's website and can be acquired from the City Clerk's office. The next is a second reading and third reading for Cadieux. I will need council's permission to give second reading.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Richard, seconded by Councillor Butler. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
A bylaw and amendment of a bylaw relating to the adoption of the City of Moncton Municipal Plan, being bylaw Z122.9, rezoning 227-229 Cadieux Street, 233-235 Cadieux Street, and the left PP. This is the second reading. Arrêté portant modification de l'arrêté concernant l'adoption du plan municipal de la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z122.9, de rezonage 227-229 rue Cadieux, 233, 235 rue Cadieux et terrain d'utilité publique. La deuxième lecture.
Third reading. Is there someone who wishes? Thank you, Councillor Richard, seconded by Councillor Butler. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
A bylaw and amendment of a bylaw relating to the adoption of the City of Moncton's municipal plan, being bylaw Z122.9, rezoning 227-229 Cadieux Street, 233-235 Cadieux Street, and LFPP. It's a third reading. Arrêté portant modification de l'arrêté concernant l'adoption du plan municipal de la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z122.9, rezonage 227-229 rue Cadieux, 233-235 rue Cadieux et terrain d'utilité publique. C'est la troisième lecture. The next is for rezoning once again of of Cadieux Street version. I mean,
For the second reading, thank you, Councillor Butler. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
A bylaw, an amendment of the City of Moncton zoning bylaw being bylaws at 222.36, rezoning at 227-229 Cadieux Street, 233-235 Cadieux Street and LFPP. C'est a second reading. Arrêté portant modification d'arrêté des zonages de la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z 222.36, le zonage 227-229 du Cadieux, 233-235 du Cadieux et terrain d'utilité. C'est la deuxième lecture. Third reading.
Third reading. Is there someone who wishes to move that? Thank you, Councillor Butler. Seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
A bylaw, an amendment of the City of Moncton zoning bylaw being bylaws at 222.36, rezoning at 227-229 Cadieux Street, 233-235 Cadieux Street and LFPP. It's the third reading. Arrêté portant modification d'arrêté de zonage de la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z 222.36, le zonage 227-229 du Cadieux, 233-235 du Cadieux et terrain d'utilité publique. C'est la troisième lecture. Next is the second and third reading for Curry Street.
Is there someone who wishes to move? Thank you, Councillor Butler. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kingston. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
A bylaw of the City of Moncton zoning bylaw being bylaws at 222.33 for Curry Street, second reading. Arrêté portant modification d'arrêté de zonage de la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z 222.33 cut rue Curry. C'est la deuxième lecture. Third reading.
Third reading. Anyone? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
A bylaw, an amendment of the City of Moncton zoning bylaw being bylaw Z 222.33 for Curry Street, so third reading. Arrêté portant modification d'arrêté de zonage de la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z 222.33 cut rue Curry. C'est la troisième lecture. The next is Eastgate's reading of bylaws.
Anyone for the second reading of Eastgate? Thank you, Councillor Richard, seconded by Councillor Butler. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
A bylaw, an amendment of the City of Moncton zoning bylaw being bylaws at 222.6.1 Eastgate. It's a second reading. Arrêté portant modification de l'arrêté de zonage de la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z 222.6.1 Eastgate. C'est la deuxième lecture. I would require third reading.
Third reading, anyone? Thank you, Councillor Richard, seconded by Councillor Butler. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
A bylaw, an amendment of the City of Moncton zoning bylaw being bylaws at 222.6.1 Eastgate. It's a third reading. Arrêté portant modification de l'arrêté de zonage de la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z 222.6.1 Eastgate. C'est la troisième lecture. And the last one is for unsightly premises, second and third reading.
Unsightly premises. Would anyone like? Thank you, Councillor Richard, seconded by Councillor Butler. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
A bylaw relating to dangerous and unsightly premises on properties in the City of Moncton being bylaw Z824, unsightly premises, second reading. Arrêté concernant les lieux et les biens dangereux ou inesthétiques dans la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z824. It's la deuxième lecture.
Third reading. Anyone? Thank you, Councillor Butler. Seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
A bylaw relating to dangerous and unsightly premises and properties in the City of Moncton being bylaw Z824. It's the third reading. Arrêté concernant les lieux et les biens dangereux ou inesthétiques dans la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z824. C'est la troisième lecture. The next is, we have no motions and resolutions, but you do have some appointments.
I do. To the following committees. To the Croix Bleue Medavie Stadium Management Committee, Shane Porter. To the Municipal Plan Review Committee, the PAC representatives would be Miles Malley, Dale McCurlin, and Roxanne Richard. Public representatives would be Kate Doyle, Michael Hogan, Vincent Roussel, Matthew Wade, Angela Smith, and Jack McDonald. To the Grant Evaluation Committee, Councillor Dave Steeves, Councillor Marty Kingston, Connor Woods, Jenny Pham, Monique Richard, and Tina Smith. And to Transaqua, Eric Arsenault. Is there someone who wishes to move this recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Legier. Seconded by Councillor Edgett. Any questions? Question? Go ahead, Councillor Butler.
I would like to see them, divide them, and we could vote on each one of them committees, please.
On the committee in totality?
Yeah, so we take each one of them.
Okay. All right then, so we will, I would take a motion to divide, I suppose, is, yeah, and, is Councillor?
Yes.
Motion to divide, everyone in favor of that? Is there a seconder for the motion to divide? Deputy Mayor. All those in favor of division signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So for the Croix Bleu Medavie Stadium Management Committee, Shane Porter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oh, do I need a motion for that? Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. So on the motion for the Croix Bleu, moved by Councillor Richard, seconded by Councillor Butler, Shane Porter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. For the Municipal Plan Review Committee, a motion to, am I motioning for? Put the names forward for the Municipal Plan Review Committee. And I will just list all of them, I guess. For the Planning Advisory Committee representatives, Miles. Did I get a motion? Did I get a motion to do this? Motion by Councillor Edgett, second by Councillor Legier. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
One nay vote. The PAC representatives are Miles Maley, Dale McCurlin, Roxanne Richard. Public representatives are Kate Doyle, Michael Hogan, Vincent Roussel, Matthew Wade, Angela Smith, and Jack McDonald. And we've already voted on that, I suppose.
No, we didn't. No.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Could the nays please hold their hands up? So I have Councillor Richard, Councillor Butler, Councillor Kingston, Councillor Crossman, and Councillor Bourgeois. So that is
Councillor Steeves.
Oh, Councillor Steeves.
Steeves, you voted against this Planning Advisory Committee, the Municipal Plan Review Committee?
Yeah, he did.
Yes?
I have Bourgeois, Richard, Butler, Kingston, Crosman, Steeves.
So the entire
Paulette.
Okay, so the entire committee you have voted against the entire committee?
Yes.
Okay, do I need some clarity on, we do need to move ahead with our municipal plan, so I'm just curious what council's direction would be with that.
Well, I think we should have I think maybe what we should do is, it's such a very important committee, that we should sit down to make sure that that council is in favor of everybody that sits there. There's quite a few people sitting there that we would like to make sure that everybody's on the same wavelength, that you know, I don't want to pick out any certain person, but I think that council has some concerns, since this is such an important committee, that we want to make sure we get it right. So I think that by going next time in our private meeting, we can put it on the agenda, we can talk about it. You know, I think some people have sent you emails, Madam Mayor, so, you know, I think you know where some people stand.
All right, well, we will, Councillor Edgett. Go ahead.
I'm not quite sure what we're doing here tonight. We have 5 or 6 on that list that have put their name forward. They've gone through a process to be screened, and staff has presented them forward as being qualified for what we are looking for. What kind of process are we heading into now? I'm concerned about this.
On the question, I would like to say, Madam Mayor, that we've already voted and it was a nay vote. So if we're going to go to another direction, I think that's something for private. So
does that mean that we're going back to all the candidates here and saying, I'm sorry, you're not
we just
to
voted
go on this
against
committee?
Point of order. It's already been voted on, Madam Mayor.
I am
This is not-
simply, Councillor Butler, I'm simply seeking direction. This is unprecedented. We have volunteers from our community that have been vetted by administration. They have submitted essays, they've submitted full application processes. And I just want a clarification on what council was hoping to achieve by voting down this committee. That is.
So I don't speak for council. I just speak for myself because I'm going to be sitting on this committee. And I would like to know more about the people that have been appointed. Yes, they probably have been vetted. They probably are great people in this community, but I would still like to sit down with council to find out if we have any concerns or that there's better people out there that we should apply. This is a very, very important committee. And there's a lot of these people I myself personally don't know. But again, we passed a motion to let it go that is defeated. So I think that maybe what we should be doing is going to our senior staff and find out which way we should go. I don't think one councillor should be saying which way to travel here.
Okay, fair enough. I guess we will bring this to, I'm not comfortable with it coming to a private session, but we'll take this under advisement. Just for total clarity, though, I would like it to be known for the record that administration did come up with, they went out publicly, asked for people to apply, they applied, council did receive their full CVs and information details about each candidate, so.
Yep. Well, it's been defeated.
Perfect. All right then. On the grant evaluation committee, I have the council. Sorry, Councillor Edgett, your hand is still up. Did you wish to speak?
Yes, please. I still don't agree with this. I mean, what appears to be happening here is that we have several councillors that are concerned about certain people that have been nominated. I can't believe that you're going to throw everybody kind of under the bus here and say, I'm sorry, you weren't accepted. I mean, we're going to lose a lot of volunteers here right away. And this is going to really hold up the municipal plan committee, and it's going to hold up a lot of progress going forward here. I mean, if certain councillors have certain problems about certain people, they should speak up now. We're in a public council right now. This is the time to do it.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Councillor Edgett, but we did just have a vote and it was unfortunately defeated. So I don't know where that leaves democracy, but
exactly.
I'm very comfortable with this, but I'm not entirely sure where we take this from here. I think I would like to say that we're extremely grateful when volunteers do step up to serve in our community, and that we need a diversity of voices around decision-making tables, and that includes voices that are dissenting voices. So
could you please name the people on the committee again for us, please?
Well, I can do that.
Madam Mayor, to the point, this has been debated, has been passed, the motion. I think we have to move on. This is not a debate now after the motion has been passed.
Well, it is on the public record. I have said the names and council does have them. So we'll move on to the grant evaluation committee. And on that, we have Councillor Dave Seaves, Councillor Marty Kingston, Connor Woods, Jenny Pham, Monique Richard, and Tina Smith, sorry. Could I have a motion to accept those names for the grant evaluation committee? Could I have a mover for that? A motion? Thank you, Councillor Butler. Is there a seconder for it? Councillor LeBlanc. Merci. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And for Transaqua, Eric Arsenault, would someone care to move that motion? Thank you, Councillor Butler, seconded by Deputy Mayor Terrio. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And just again, you know, how lucky are we to live in a community where volunteers, and they are true volunteers because they are not paid, step up to serve our community and put hours and hours of work in. I'd like to thank everybody who puts their name forward to serve. I believe that concludes today's agenda. I take a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Councillor Richard.